beginning, please introduce yourself and what are you doing here?
Sure. My name's Robert Meyer. I'm a senior game designer at Avalanche Studios. I work out of the New York office, worked on Just Cause 4, worked on Just Cause 3, and I'm here in Hamburg, Germany for part of our Chaos Over Hamburg press event for Just Cause 4.
All right. So Just Cause 4, a huge open world game with some new gameplay aspects in there. And the thing that strikes my mind first is the extreme weather effects we got in the game. So maybe explain a little bit how they are introduced, because you kind of got away from this little island stuff you had in the previous games, and now you have like a big land mass more.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, extreme weather is one of the biggest new additions and features to the Just Cause franchise that we added in the fourth installment. And it's something that we kind of had in mind for the vision of this game from very early on. So it's something that we've been building up this whole time in development. When you kind of start the game, the scene that sort of starts it off is Rico is meeting up with someone named Mira, who's an ally of his that has given him word that she thinks that Rico's father's disappearance is somewhat linked to all these extreme weather events that are going on in the country of Solis, which is our fictional South American island country. So she kind of gets Rico to come to Solis to try and investigate this Project Iapa, which she believes is like the weather research facility that might be sort of going on, because the people of Solis are told that this is due to climate change or global warming, that all these extreme weather events are happening, but Mira has reason to believe that they might actually be somewhat man-made. So that's kind of the narrative introduction for where these extreme weather events are coming from. Now, when you actually start playing the game and you get further into it, you'll actually see all the extreme weather events in the open world almost right away. You can find tornadoes in the grasslands. You can find thunderstorms in the rainforest. So they're all there, and you can see viscerally that all these extreme weather events are there, plaguing the people of Solis. And then as you progress further into the game, you play what are called operations, which are kind of our mission structures. And there's a different operation centered around each extreme weather event. So there's a whole kind of mission line centered around the tornado, investigating the paths of the tornado, trying to build vehicles that can get close to it, chasing the tornado, trying to get it to, go to certain areas where you can analyze it and try and figure out what's really happening here. Are these tornadoes naturally occurring? Are they man-made? Where are they coming from? What is their purpose? So there's kind of a whole mission line like that for each piece of extreme weather. But I just want to emphasize that they're not just in these missions. They're also there in the open world that you can go and play around with anytime.
This was one point where I was like, okay, how will that be implemented into the open world so that they can also be happening while you're in the middle of a big mission and suddenly, I don't know, a tornado strikes and everything is different right now. How do you prevent that this gets frustrating for the players?
Yeah, so we had to design everything with that kind of sense in mind. So you can always see most of the extreme weather events from pretty far away because they're a pretty big read in the world. I mean, you can see the tornado or the thunderstorm or the sandstorm from like pretty much kilometers and kilometers away. So you can kind of see it coming if you really want to plan around it. But all the kind of different strikes and areas and the path of these different extreme weather events, we've made sure that everything we build works systemically with the tornado, with the extreme weather events. So AI will always react to these things in a certain way. Different types of destructible objects can get pulled up by the tornado or struck by lightning. We've kind of made it so everything reacts to this, and we've designed everything so that all the objectives of different strikes or missions should all work in some way, whether the extreme weather is there or not. So we don't have anything that's too fragile, because this is a Just Cause game. Anything chaotic like that can happen. And we want that to actually improve the experience if it happens. We want the extreme weather to actually change the gameplay when it shows up. So we want it to kind of improve the game and not build things in a fragile state where that would kind of make it better or worse if it wasn't there or not.
Mm. Will there be special enemy units linked to the weather conditions?
Not necessarily like special enemy units linked to the weather conditions. We do have a much bigger roster of different enemy types, and they do show up in different kind of areas of the world, more or less, but it's not like there's a special tornado enemy or something like that. But there are like certain vehicles that are more or less susceptible to the tornado or more or less susceptible to the thunderstorm or sandstorm that you might see the enemies using in those areas. And as well, there's just a bunch of new enemy types, like there's drones and turrets and cannons and kind of a bunch of autonomous enemies that weren't in the previous entries. And for our normal, just like black hand enemy types, there's a lot more variation and kind of specialization in the different things that the enemies bring to this game.
Okay. So I've played like the game now for like about 90 minutes or something like this. We played the entire start of the game. Well, my first impression was that it's actually a bit calmer than the game before, because the chaos seems to be evolving a bit slower. Was it just my impression of the start, or was it just me being too stupid to play it?
No, you were being fine. So first of all, we did skip you past some of the first intro missions. So you didn't start at the very beginning. You started like an hour into the game. So one of the opening missions that you kind of skipped past is Rico attempting to actually attack and infiltrate Project Iapa for the first time. So there is some kind of explosive combat right out the gate to kind of get you more into it. But then the idea is kind of that Rico gets beaten back. He kind of has to take a step back, reunite with Mira and his other allies, figure out like kind of a better plan, unlock some new abilities, gather more information. So the narrative does kind of take a step back at that point to be like, okay, let's see what's really going on here. Let's get a good sense of the whole world of Solis. Let's get a good sense of what this army of chaos is up to. Rico as a character has a lot more depth this time, and his motivations are a lot more kind of authentic and human. So he's not just like causing chaos for the sake of chaos. But, of course, this is a Just Cause game. It's going to be filled with chaos and destruction, and that gets reintroduced pretty quickly afterwards. And we also wanted to make Just Cause 4, in similar way to Just Cause 3, kind of chaotic on command. So when you want it to get chaotic and explosive, you can get it that way, but it's not going to force that on you. If you want to walk around or drive around or go for a leisurely fly, we want you to be able to do that too, because it's really important to us that Just Cause is like a really good hangout game where you can kind of explore the world and do things at your own pace.
I see that you're kind of emphasizing the whole story thing and the narration behind the game, because in previous games, let's be honest, the story was nothing to be really excited about. It was there, but the main hero of the game was the chaos and the destruction, all the other stuff. What was the approach on the story in this game then?
Yeah, we definitely took a different approach. I think, the stories in past Just Cause games served what those games wanted to be decently well, but we definitely have a different approach this time. To me, the best way to explain it is if you think about previous Just Cause games, it's always kind of been the agency sending Rico in to kind of overthrow some comically evil dictator, who are really always fun kind of evil characters, but it's a little black and white, the good and evil, and it's like, a little bit more chaos and destruction out the gate, and you don't really have to get too deep into anyone's motivations. This time, the reason Rico is being called back to Solis is just because of a rumor that his father's disappearance has something to do with these extreme weather events. He's not being sent there to overthrow some evil dictator. Like, you don't really even understand exactly what the government of Solis is like. The people are not obviously oppressed in the same way that they have been in the military dictatorships of previous games. So it's a little bit more nuanced, and it's a little bit more of a mystery story in some way. And it's really more focused on Rico and Mira and some of these other characters. And so as you play the game, you start to learn more about who are the characters behind the scenes. It progresses a little bit more subtlety, and there's a little bit more nuance to the emotions, because we wanted to make a little bit more of a meaningful narrative this time around. So there was definitely a lot of effort putting into crafting a better narrative this time around, and at the same time there was a lot of effort put into making sure that that narrative and those missions and story missions are not forced upon you, so the players who like the open world sandbox and like the chaos and destruction and exploring can still go anywhere at any time and do anything, and we're not going to hold back those players either.
How will it be? Is there let's say an equal approach to the side missions as well, so that are there small stories within Solis that maybe were never like this in the Just Cause series before?
Definitely. We have a whole approach to sort of a lot of our kind of side content in this game that's a lot deeper than we've had in previous games. So we have a variety of what we call backer characters, who are other characters throughout Solis you can kind of meet and learn about and aid and go on this whole other storyline with. So we have Garland, who's a movie director, who's there trying to film this over-the-top action stunt movie, and she basically is trying to recruit Rico to help her perform certain stunts that she or her stunt crew aren't able to do. We've got Javi, who's really in Solis trying to investigate the indigenous cultures and peoples and ancient history of Solis, because he thinks that the current regime is basically trying to rewrite history to their favor and like kind of write away the real truths of the indigenous and ancient cultures of Solis. So he wants Rico to kind of help him explore and kind of get the truth back out there. And then there's Sargento, who's just one of the sergeants of Rico's Army of Chaos. And there's a lot of stuff you can do with him to kind of learn more and aid more the Army of Chaos, who are sort of the rebels in this game. And a lot of the side content fits into one of those three characters or those three different storylines, which are parallel to and supporting the main storyline, but definitely have their own kind of characters and quirks that I think make the side content a lot more well realized. I love Just Cause 3. I worked on it. but a lot of the collectibles in that game are kind of going up to a thing and pressing Y. And we tried to make everything in this game a little bit more meaningful, have a little bit deeper, more interactions, and to have like a good narrative justification behind what it is, why it's there in the world, what purpose it serves. And so we think that makes the whole experience a little bit more authentic.
All right. And of course, you're introducing like a huge system of configuration possibilities for the grappling hook for balloons and for the, what's the last one?
The boosters.
The boosters, right. Yeah. I heard that there are a couple of million possible combinations. How much, at what point is too much, you know?
Yeah. That's a great question. So yeah, we have this, what we call the fully customizable grappling hook now. So not only can you grapple two things together and retract them, but there are also boosters and airlifters you can attach with the grapple wires as well. So right out the gate, we have those three different abilities. You can use them one at a time. You can use any combination of any two or three of them at a time. And you can completely customize the input that they're on. Do you want them to automatically fire, or do you want to have to tap or hold for them to activate? And then there's a whole series of mods underneath them which allow you to customize how the airlifters work in a whole variety of ways, customize how the boosters and the retract works as well. At the same time, even though there are technically over 4 million different combinations of ways you can load out your grappling hook, we wanted to make sure that it was accessible and that we give the power to the players who really like going deep in the sandbox and building, all these intense contraptions, but we don't force that on you at any point in the game. So there's a few ways we achieve that. First, we kind of, work the menu and the UX design out so that at the high level, you're mostly just choosing, do you want to use airlifters, boosters, or retract right now? You don't really have to go too deeper than that. If you want to go deeper into the menus, that's where you get the mods that allow you to customize everything, and you get a lot more information. In addition to that, we pace out all the different mods and upgrades kind of slowly over time, so you kind of get unveiled to them as you progress, so it's not too overwhelming at first. But probably the most important thing is that all the different types of objects that you kind of need to interact with throughout the game, almost none of them require you to specifically use retract or booster or airlifter. They all work with any of them. So let's say there's a generator and you need to rip the cover off this generator in order to destroy it. You can rip it off with retract, but you can also lift it off with an airlifter, and you can boost it off. So we designed almost every object in the game to make sure it worked with no matter what grappling hook loadout you have, so that you can play with your own style. You pretty much, after you do the intro mission that gives you the airlifters, you could probably get through the entire rest of the game never using the airlifters if you really didn't want to. So we try and make it accessible, but also make it super deep for the players who really love getting into the customization and creating their own stunts and vehicle contraptions.
Okay, so final question. We've been playing the PC version here. How are the console versions doing? And especially, how are the versions for the older console generation? So the normal PlayStation 4 and the normal Xbox One, how are they doing? And are there any differences there?
As far as I know, they're doing great. I will say that throughout the entire development of Just Cause 4, first of all, we have a new engine, the Apex engine, which is Avalanche proprietary technology that we built for this edition of the game. And we've had performance in mind throughout this entire production process. So I think we've been much more mindful and focused on performance across all platforms than maybe, we had been. I mean, we're always a very technology-heavy studio, and we really pride ourselves on our technology, but I think this time in particular, we've been paying a lot of attention to performance and optimization the whole time through. So hopefully when the game comes out, people can experience that.
Okay. And have you already played Red Dead Redemption?
I have not, because I've been in Europe since Friday, and my home is in New York, so I haven't even had a single day at home since the game's been out, but I can't wait to play it when I get back.
Because it's so different, This is so fast and
yeah.
But I think, how do you see the current development of open world games? Because we have like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was that huge. We had Red Dead Redemption, which is like so detailed, and of course we have Just Cause, which is like completely different anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that the genre has become so diverse. I mean, in many ways, open world now can mean so many different things because people have gone in so many different directions with their games, which I think is beautiful, and you always want that in the industry. It's great to have diversity of styles across all these different games. It's better for all the players out there, and it's better for the developers to kind of learn from each other and grow. And I think you're right. I think Just Cause is still actually really unique compared to a lot of the more modern open world games. As much as I love those games and I play them all the time, I think we have a unique balance between our tone and our sandbox and the physics and everything that we do with our giant, beautiful worlds. Like, I think Just Cause is in a pretty good place right now with its role in the open world game community.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. Appreciate it.